You're listening to Tabletop Arcanum, a podcast dedicated to learning and exploring the hobby of tabletop gaming. Your hosts are Justin Taylor and Richard Geese, so sit back and relax as we talk, discuss, and joke our way through the hobby we love so much. Disclaimer. A degree from Strixhaven University does not provide protection from magic missiles, fireballs, freezing spheres, or any deleterious effects spellcasters might generate. If you create deleterious effects, Strixhaven will kindly request that you refrain from evoking any names, symbols, or other references to the university should you find yourself in a confrontation. Strixhaven University does not take responsibility for any injury of any nature sustained in the course of anything magical or otherwise. Welcome to Tabletop Arcanum, and this is Justin, and today I'm bringing you a review of the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition Strixhaven, a Curriculum of Chaos. This is a new Magic the Gathering tie-in book so it falls in line with Guide to Ravnica and Mythic Odysseys of Thermos, and is a bit of a hybrid book. Clocks in about 224 pages, and has the standard cover as well as that retailer exclusive cover. So whichever one you prefer, definitely check those out. So first impressions, I thought this was going to be a little bit more heavier setting book and geared towards things of that nature, especially with the Magic the Gathering tie-in. So I was in line with more of what I was seeing out of Ravnica or Thermos, and it hit a slightly different note for me, and it was interesting because as I continued to get further in the book, some of my earlier complaints were definitely answered later on. Let's talk about holistically what this book is for and what is it trying to do. So it introduces a new setting or new place to potentially host adventures, whether you want to use the city Strixhaven University as written or drop it into any other campaign like a Forgotten Realms, Eberron, etc. It's kind of built in such a way that it could do that. Now, one of those things that I do like about it, and also have at the same time, it does, if you know enough about Magic Gathering or are familiar with the set that this comes from, you have a lot of those name drops and overtones and thematics with the 5 colleges. There is some nice things about the book. It doesn't necessarily lean itself very heavily to players. There is a new race, which is an owl-based race, pair of new feats, which are very magically inclined college-level feats, as well as some backgrounds that tie you to the university itself. So those are some really nice things to help gear characters towards this, but they are very highly focused items for players to work on this. I kind of feel it falls a lot more lines with the Ravnica stuff, where it is so heavily themed that some of it may be difficult to rip into a non-Strixhaven setting. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but definitely would need a little bit more flavor and cover to tone down the Magic the Gathering aspects if that is something that doesn't necessarily gel with your world. The bulk of this book, I was expecting to be more lore, setting information on NPCs and things of that nature, when actually a bulk of the book turned out to be more of a level 1 through level 8 adventure that takes place over several school years at the university for your players. And each of them are broken down into a school year with a couple different sub-adventures. And within each of those years and arcs, you can actually run them as standalones with a couple light tweaks, or you can run them together as a chained event where there is a big bad evil guy that is doing the things that are going on. It has a lot going for it in that aspect, but it was definitely not on my expected list. Likewise, one of my major issues is because I was walking in thinking it was going to be a lot more heavily setting-based, the overview of the colleges seemed light and only got more context as I reviewed the adventure section, and more of the school came alive throughout the adventure itself. I would have preferred to see that pulled out of the adventure and put more into more of a grimoire style overview of the university itself. There is some nice things going on with the amount of stat blocks and monster options in the back of the book, but I did find it odd that one of the major foils to the universities, and which comes up in the adventure, wasn't really discussed until it came up in the adventure and was appeared in the bestiary section. So some of the layout and some of those things were definitely negatives for me on this one. I definitely say it is a book that you would need to read cover to cover so that you get a holistic picture of everything going on. And I was hoping for a little bit more of a condensed spot that all of that information could be housed within the book. Likewise, because it is scattered throughout, none of the sections really feel like they have a deep enough dive going into that college or that school or those NPCs. A positive note, though, I will say, is they do have a couple new mechanic systems that are definitely interesting, especially in the written around the adventures of relationships with other NPCs and possible boons or benefits you may have by being friends or enemies with some of the other students at the school. Likewise, they actually have a nice breakdown of exams and how some things in a school district setting that you would learn, say, about owlbears or slads, come into play later on in different aspects in the adventure, and because of how you did on your exam, you may get a benefit later on in that adventure. And I think that was a very, very nice touch going into how those adventures were built. Overall, I feel Strixhaven is a weaker addition to the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. I don't know if it does quite enough to justify the $50 price tag that the books come with. If you are looking for a school-based game and want to run a Hogwarts in D&D sort of feel, this is definitely a book to check out for that. But I feel it falls into a very narrow niche in that sense. There's very little that if you were not looking for it, that I feel that you could rip out of this book and apply to other parts of your game. Not saying that you can't do it, but I feel there are a lot stronger titles in the lineup that you can do that with. Theros being one of them, as it is a very heavily Greek-themed setting, which leaned into the D&D motifs a little bit easier than Strixhaven does. I do see that Strixhaven would have a wonderful setup and example for the world of Eberron, with the not one but two magic colleges that exist in that world, and using this as either a third or how to run some of those magic colleges in the game. If Strixhaven had a little bit more focus on its setting, or it played a little bit heavier in player options, I think it could have been a stronger title. In all aspects of this book, I feel, as I went through it, took a look at everything that it offered, that there was just a little bit lacking in every department. While I don't think it's a failing of a book, I definitely don't want to say it's higher than a D. This is Tabletop Arcanum's review of Strixhaven, A Curriculum of Chaos. Hope that gives you a better idea of what to expect in this new D&D volume. Make sure to follow us on our social medias. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification button so that you know when new content is released. And as always, happy gaming. You've been listening to Tabletop Arcanum, produced by Justin Taylor. This episode is hosted by Justin Taylor. Mixing and editing by Richard Geese. Original theme by Paul Moore and Isaac Gilbert. Check the description for this episode's featured background music. You can follow us on most social media platforms. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow, and leave us a review if you would. As always, thanks for listening.